Hello guys, very welcome to Lawfren. Today we have with us Sujith Jacob, who has secured All India rank 69 in NLSAT and All India rank 26 in NLUO NAIET. So we'll be delving deep into his preparation strategy today, and we'll be learning each and everything about the sources he covered, the mock tests that he gave, and also the practice and many things about him, and even his personal life a bit. So yeah, hey Sujith, introduce yourself.
So, hello everyone. I am Sujith Jacob. I am a BTech Computer Science graduate from VIT Vellore, and I gave a lot of 3-year LLB exams this year, out of them which were NLSAT and NLUO. Apart from what I have studied, I like reading, writing, and public speaking a lot. That is something I've done a lot in college. And I decided to make a shift from a very tech coding related field to law midway through my BTech, where I realized that I needed to do something that would be much more of me and I would like doing it. So that is how I took a year to realize that I wanted to do an LLB and then started preparing for 3-year LLB exams. So that's a little about me.
That's great. That's great, Sujit. Just tell me this: how did you get to know about NLSAT? Because it's a very, it's an exam that many people don't know about. So, how did you come across this exam?
So initially, I was just looking for LLB programs,
Okay.
and the idea of a 5-year LLB really haunted me because I knew of just 5-year LLB. Like everyone knows just a 5-year LLB, but then like a bit of searching up on Reddit or whatnot, I found 3-year LLB programs are there in India. But a major chunk of like the information about NLSAT that I got was from I think the Lawfren group itself on Telegram,
Yeah.
because I came in blind. I had no idea what the exam is, what the pattern is. It's just people talking about it and me reading about, oh, this person, and then you text something, you have a doubt, they give you resources to refer and all that. So that is how I found out about NLSAT and decided to prep for it. The exam also was very unique to me because I have just given like MCQ exams all my life. So having a subjective part was fun for me.
That's true. And when did you start preparing for NLSAT? Like, when was the first time that you started preparing for NLSAT, and how did you approach the exam initially when you didn't know anything about the exam? Like, what were the resources that you initially went with?
So I was very late, I would say, for starting for NLSAT. I started towards the end of November 2024.
Okay.
So it's like about 5 months before the exam. And initially, I made a mistake, I would say, now in retrospect, at following random online free resources, trying to find how the exam works. The first resource that I followed was the PYQ only. That gave me
Okay.
an idea what the exam is. But then I had to like kind of center myself and like find better resources because and one thing I feel that really helped was solving CAT and GMAT passages for
Okay.
RCs. And uh, I did not follow a particular compendium of sorts for GK. I
Okay.
just read the newspaper and a lot of ChatGPT for uh, GK. That is how I used to brush up a lot of my GK.
Okay, so
It's
we'll delve into each part of it. First, let's start with part A. So part A,
yeah,
you told me that first you went through the PYQs.
yeah.
So what did you exactly see in PYQs? Like, what did you search for in PYQs, and what did you learn out of PYQs?
Okay, so I think it depends for everyone. For me personally, right, in this exam, the issue for me, I think, wasn't getting to like, how can I explain? To like, not, there wasn't an issue in me understanding a passage,
Okay.
but it was how fast I do it. It was my reading speed that was an issue when it came to like part A.
Okay.
And GK, because coming from like a totally tech related field, I had no practice of like ever reading the newspaper or keeping track of what's going on. Like I used to do that when I was in school, but then I stopped on purpose because I did not want to know a lot about what's going
That's
on.
true.
So getting that habit back was tough for me. So those are the two things I noticed. One was management is very difficult when it comes to NLSAT,
Okay.
especially for me, and the GK.
Okay, so in GK, when you went through the PYQs, did you note down any important topics in GK, like the awards or the important persons
Yes.
in news? Did you do any of this process?
Yes, I did. I had to sit through whatever question papers I had, right? I would segment. I had a small little GK book. I
Okay.
tried to be very like deliberate and like write down. It's incomplete, but I made domains are like categories in it, right?
Okay.
Like awards would go in one particular section of that book.
Okay.
Uh, Schemes that are introduced by the government would go in one. Like
Okay.
I segmented it in such a way and that is totally based on PYQs because
Okay.
I knew that I couldn't cover all of the GK, all of the current affairs for like a year. So I had to plan it in a way that I could do as much as I can.
Okay.
So I focused on what kind of questions the PYQs were asking and I focused on those topics.
Perfect. And this is for the GK part. Did you do any similar part for the reading comprehension? For example, there are few questions like what would the author most agree with? Like, these kind of
Yeah.
questions. Did you do any similar drill for reading comprehension questions?
For me, reading comprehensions was all about just mocks over and over again, and then analyzing where I went wrong, what
Okay.
did I do wrong.
Mhm.
I particularly struggled with like central theme of the passage, right? Because there would
Exactly.
be like two very very close
Close.
things, and initially my thought process would be like, oh, this covers like these many lines over here,
True.
or the author is ending with that. So but then after like reading, I feel you have to kind of vibe with the passage.
True.
It's very vague to say you have to vibe with the passage, but it actually comes down to it. And I have realized that the passages I don't vibe with, I score horrendously bad. It happened in the NLSAT paper as well. Like my mistakes are very clustered.
Okay.
If I am vibing with a passage, that passage is very accurate for me. I score very, very good in that. And if I don't really get into the passages, the mistakes are accumulated over there. So that is a mistake that happened to me.
So, like, what used to happen even in exam? This might have happened that when there are two options too close. Like, how did you approach this question? Did you go with the first option that struck your mind, or did you, like overthink it and get it wrong? Usually, people do this, right? That's the reason
So
I'm asking.
I used to overthink so much, but then I realized the more this is purely from my analysis of my previous mocks, right?
Okay.
The more I overthink, the more probability of me marking the wrong
Exactly.
answer because I would make up 10 reasons to justify another option which
Exactly.
doesn't need to be there.
True.
Like the examiner wouldn't have thought of any of that. They would have gone for the straightforward thing,
True.
but I would think of 10 reasons to make another option. So I think trusting your gut or like just the vibe matters. I say vibe, it's like very vague, but I hope you get
No, I
like
get
the
it. I
gist.
get the point of it. And one more thing, you mentioned that you went through GMAT and CAT materials, right, for reading
Yes.
comprehension. Did you go through CLAT materials as well? If no, for GMAT and CAT, what are the sources that you went through? Because everyone say they go through GMAT and CAT, but many people don't know where to access those GMAT and CAT material. So,
Yeah. So I just went through some of like the official content.
okay,
PYQs is what I
okay,
used mostly, and for GMAT there is like the official guide, right? And there
okay.
is like a
Official guide, and I
grail
guess there's
for
a website called GMAT Club. So that's a nice
yes.
place to get questions from.
That's a nice place to read questions as well. So very standard stuff. I used to like solve for a long period of time. It was just me solving like a couple of reading comprehensions whenever I got time.
Okay.
It's towards the end, like the last 2 months, where I really started doing full length mocks, where I used to sit for the entire duration of the this thing, and getting through the whole paper is something that I struggled with as well because I feel I don't know if this happens to a lot of people, but I used to be exhausted by the time part A gets
Yeah,
over
that's
every
true.
single time. So I had to build up that stamina over time. And I made sure that I'm like giving the exam during the 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. window. That is when the actual exam happens as
True.
well. And like keeping up with the stamina of it was also. But yeah, I think for part A, it's more than you like for people who have to like build up that vocabulary or like English from like a grassroots level, they need a bit more effort in the sense that they need to start slower and take more time to like grasp the meaning of concepts. For me particularly, it was just getting the speed of
Speed of
it.
it. So during the call, you mentioned that you had a issue with the reading speed. So, like when you started practicing, how much time did you take to finish each question, like the entire party, and in the final exam, like how much time did you take to do the same?
Okay. Uh, so, my strategy for this was okay, it's 2.5 hours, right? I wanted 70 to 80 minutes for my uh, part B. Like
Okay.
that, like 80 minutes was my hard. You stop your part A,
Okay.
but 70 minutes is something that I preferred. Like you take 70 minutes for your part A and the remaining 80 minutes for your part B to write good answers. And I kind of developed it through my mocks, but on the day of the like towards the end in my mocks, I used to finish part A in like 60 minutes also.
Okay.
But when it came to the actual exam day with the OMR filling that is there
Yeah.
and making sure that nothing is going on and the added exam stress on top of it, I went to 75
75
minutes
minutes.
for
Okay.
my party. Yeah, I had 75. I remember it being like half the time and half the time for part B. So I had to like rush up my part B a little bit,
Okay.
but it worked out.
Perfect. Perfect. Right. Yeah. And how many questions of GMAT and CAT did you solve? How many mocks you solved in total?
In total, I solved around 15 mocks, I think.
Okay.
Uh, that was my total number of like NLSAT mocks. The number of passages I will have to go back and check because how I solved passages was sometimes 3 a day, 4 a day, whatever I find on like GMAT Club or CAT PYQs. I would just
Okay.
solve them. So I don't have a particular number, but it was a usual daily practice while prepping for NLSAT.
That's perfect. But I didn't get the source from where you studied for GK because ChatGPT sometimes it might be wrong
Yeah.
with GK. So what's the exact source that
Yeah.
you went with GK preparation?
So, how I used to work is there's a lot of like Telegram groups, right?
Okay.
Where people put like polls every day about random GK stuff. There is
Yeah.
newspaper groups that
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
on. So after I started NLSAT prep, I started reading the newspaper
Okay.
because I was like, okay. But then whatever backlog I had to do that a bit strategically according to like the PYQ strategy that I personally saw.
Okay.
Personally, I am still a little bit repellent to GK, and whatever marks I have lost here and there, it's GK only.
Okay.
Like if you look at my NLU Odisha paper, right? I would have scored so much more marks if not for GK.
Okay.
Like I lost a majority chunk of my marks in GK.
Okay.
But how I overcame being horrendous at GK would be just not trying to learn everything that is there because that overwhelms
That's
you
true.
so
You
much.
can't
Because
you
I
can't study
try to do
everything under the sky, right? I mean, GK is ever
yes,
extensive. You'll have to study everything. So
because I remember picking up like very huge compendiums and being scared within the first two pages and dropping it because I'm like, I can't remember what was there 2, 3 pages back. I can't do this. So that happened a lot and it was a loop. So I had to like get out of it and realize one thing that I personally like in the NLSAT GK especially, it's very like contextual, if you know what I
true,
mean.
true,
It's
true. In
very
fact,
related to the
I have observed a
background.
trend. I have observed a trend that for example, passage is based on some topic, and the current affair will it will be closely based on the passage itself, somewhere
Yes.
related to it. So you can eliminate in the options as well. You need not go through everything as such for GK.
Yeah.
So that's one thing.
And
Hmm.
it's not very random also. At least that's what I feel.
Exactly.
Because I feel with other exams, for example, CUET or MHCET, it's very random. They can ask you anything under the sun, and
True.
they have like static GK as well. So you cannot really predict. But with NLSAT, I agree that there are like a few questions. This is what the strategy that I went in with. There will be like a good 5, 6 GK questions that I cannot solve regardless
True.
of how
Yeah,
much I
that's
study.
that's the right
So
way to approach.
I had to optimize my RCs and CR for that, because you cannot be like 100% sure despite doing everything.
True.
But if I had to like start my NLSAT prep from scratch, I feel reading the newspaper every day gives you enough context to like solve a majority chunk of the GK questions.
True. True. That's
And then
that's true.
towards the end, just revision helps.
hmm That's true. And jumping into your favorite part, that is part B. You scored 43.5 in part B, and that's just 1 mark less than All India rank 2.
Yes.
That's actually a really great score in part B. So how did you approach part B? This because part A still people can figure out, but part B is something it's very tricky. So how did you
Okay.
approach part B?
So in general, right, whenever I see people talk about Part B, they are very scared about Part B on how to approach it. I, on the other hand, I was very excited for Part B. Part B is what interested me, like in writing NLSAT. Initially, when I was like giving my mocks, right, I used to write Part B before, but then I realized that's not a very good strategy. So I went back to writing it later. But how I approached Part B is the essay was one strategy, and the legal aptitude questions were different. So for the legal
Okay.
aptitude questions, I'm talking to like different people. Some people told me like use the IRAC framework, like
Yeah.
the issue, argument, something
Yeah.
conclusion,
Yeah.
the, the whole framework, right? And they're like, they use this in law school and the NLS professors will like it or whatnot.
True.
I kind of derived like my version of it while writing. For me, it was always about like trying to identify what. One thing I really did with my essays was that I never repeated anything that's already there in the question. I feel
Okay.
that would really annoy the examiner
That's true.
because I don't want to copy paste a fact. Whatever I am writing is my own opinion about the thing. And
That's true.
one thing I feel that made my legal aptitude questions a little unique also is that I always tried to think what the core issue in it is, because I see a lot of people write the final question that is asked as the issue, but there
Okay.
is a layer on top of it when you think about legal aptitude questions.
Yeah.
Like uh, I could give you an example from like the NLSAT paper itself, but I
Yeah.
don't have it right
Perfect.
now. Uh, but it's like trying to like recollect a random question. But it's like if the plaintiff owes like damages to the person in a car accident, right? Something like that. For
Okay.
example, we have vicarious liability question. A lot of people frame their issue as that is A liable to pay damages to B,
Yeah.
and I feel that is very like wrong and basic to do, and that gets your essay marked down very much. Like you're directly copying something off the question, right?
That is true.
But there is more elements to it. An example that one of the examples I feel this is a very done essay topic where someone, an employee, without the permission of like their boss, takes the vehicle, an accident happens, or is the employee like viable for it or not? So
Yeah.
what we need to inspect is to inspect if the employee was outside his scope of employment
Yeah.
while doing that particular act. And that is something I feel a lot of people miss.
That is true.
And secondly, what I focused in all of my essays was that I did not go on and on. It was
Okay.
very concise. I did not write anything to pad on words. Like, I
Okay.
never thought about a word limit, because I remember when I attended the NLS orientation that they did also, it was all about, they were like, there is no word limit, there is a space limit.
Yeah.
So I took that to heart and I was like, whatever space they have given me, I will make use of that in the most proper manner. I do not need to fill the whole space, but I need to cover all of my points and arguments.
That's true.
So I never put like a word constraint on myself.
And for essay, did you go with factual approach? Like, did you mention any facts? Because like many of our students are UPSC aspirants who have cracked NLSAT. So, and their part B answers were great. I mean, they have scored around 40 plus itself, but less than yours. 43 yours is the highest among our people right now, as of now. So, like, how did you approach? Because you're not from a UPSC background, and you have still managed to score 43.5. So your essay marks must be really good. So, did you go with any factual approach, or did you just go with philosophical approach towards the essay?
So it was kind of a mix of both, right? This time, the essay topic that I wrote on was about a woman getting domestic, like
Okay.
paid for domestic labor, right? So that was the topic that I wrote on. And I started a bit on like the philosophical route where I mentioned a quote by Mahatma Gandhi,
Okay.
where he mentions about like the dignity of its nation being to the downtrodden or whatnot.
True.
I started off with a quote, tried to be a little bit philosophical, but the body of my essay, right, the introduction and conclusion were philosophical as to
Okay.
like my personal opinion, but the body was totally different events that have happened and if it supports my claim, right? I tried to use all of the current affairs that I had learned in my essay, like, oh, this thing has happened, like there are schemes that are there. Are they really helping women? And it
Okay.
is not just mentioning that particular thing,
Scheme.
it's my opinion on
Okay.
particular,
So
like,
basically, for the
yeah.
introduction and conclusion, you went with the philosophical approach by mentioning quotes. And for body, you went with factual approach, but you also explained the critical reasoning behind it. Is it of any
Yes,
help right now, or is it helping the women? Is it fulfilling the objective?
yes. I
Perfect.
took a stance
You
on
took a
it
stance. Okay.
particularly.
You weren't
Yeah.
neutral with it. You took a
No,
stance.
no,
Perfect.
yeah. I feel initially like I used to write very neutral standpoints because in an engineering background, right, you have to kind of write in a very neutral standpoint whenever it comes to anything in our exams as well.
True.
But when it comes to something like NLSAT, you have to take a stance. Like they mention it again and again in the orientation as well. So I kept that in mind while writing my essays that I have to be clear on what direction I am going in. For me, it was women should not, domestic like work shouldn't be compensated. That was my stance. And I
Okay.
stood with it because I felt that puts more like burden on women and the societal expectations, right now are also for the
True.
women to be in kitchen
True.
and like just do that. It will push them more towards that. That was the approach that I went with, and I
True.
stuck with it throughout. And I feel that's what really got my essay well scored.
So you mentioned that you went with the stance because even in NLSIU orientation they mentioned that it's good if you go with the stance.
Yes,
Perfect. And for part B legal questions you went with IRAC method.
I went with IRAC method, and
Okay.
again, same thing. I took a stance in the beginning of the question
Okay.
itself, and I.
Okay, perfect. And final thing that I want to know is how many questions did you practice for part B legal questions and essay questions each?
Okay. So for essays, I had a very different strategy in the sense that up until I started like proper full length mocks, I did not write any timed essays. All
Okay.
the essays that I wrote were like I got a topic, I would sit and research it for like a day
Okay.
and develop an essay because I felt like writing an essay without any knowledge, right? I would just be doing the same thing over and over
This
again
is
and
this
not
is
really
very
exploring.
important. What you just mentioned now, this is a very important point. So it's better to research about the essay if you don't know how to write an essay than directly jumping into writing some normal, like not that great of an essay. That's right. The time management for essay. So, like, how much time did you give for essay, and how much time did you give for legal questions of part B?
For legal questions, I kept 10 minutes each for each question and
Okay.
15 minutes for my essay. So it was six legal aptitude questions, 10
Okay.
minutes each. Some took like 12, so I compensated the others with like 8 minutes. Overall, cumulative 60 minutes for legal aptitude, 15 minutes for my final essay.
Were you really good at time management even during the mock test practice, or like how did you develop it? Because many students who are not from
Oh,
UPSC background, writing answers is a very hectic thing, and finishing the
yes.
entire paper in 2.5 hours is a very tough job. So how did you approach it? Like how did you do it?
So, with respect to part B, my time management was slightly better, I would say, because I am fast at writing.
Okay.
The whole issue that I faced was formulating my answer,
Okay.
like trying to initially you have to like think about it, and by the time you start writing, it became too late for me. That was the issue I faced, and not the actual answer writing part. How I fixed it was just basically practicing so many questions that you get a general template in your head. Like there would be a vicarious liability question. There
Okay.
would be some kind of like financial question that comes, and you pick a stance, formulate a structure in your head, and you start writing.
Okay.
Because what I did was that I used the rough page. I jot down like 4 points to structure my legal aptitude questions, and essay I usually don't do that. Like if I would do that, that would be nice, I think. For me, essay just I develop it as I write because it's bigger to write. But for legal aptitude, I have the IRAC format, so I could just this main point. I would
Okay.
just write like a word each. I would not spend too much time writing because that again kills time.
True.
So I have a pencil. I write like 4 words. Okay, this is the route I want to go, and I start writing.
Okay.
So
And
the
like,
thought.
yeah, like I've got one small doubt. Like, let's jump back to essay again. You mentioned that you quoted Mahatma Gandhi in the beginning, right? So how did you how did you get the quote? Like, did you learn a list of quotes or something that you can use for essay?
This is last few days before the exam. I knew I was going to use a quote during the exam. Like it starts off well and it shows that you know, like you've read up stuff, right? So
True.
I chat GPT quotes
Okay.
about different like I was like I picked like when you chat GPT also, right? I think this being like a CS student, it comes to me is that like normally chat GPTing wouldn't get you stuff. You
True.
have
True.
to prompt very specific.
True. That is true.
Like when I have like a bunch of like recurring topics, right? I would give ChatGPT that context that, oh, these are like recurring topics. These
Okay.
are some of the great thinkers.
Okay.
So now go and search up good quotes for me. Then I would take those and like see which are good, which are bad. So it's not exactly just taking stuff from ChatGPT, but kind of using it to like fasten up your process of handling stuff.
That's nice. That's actually nice. In fact, if you could provide some of your prompts that you used in ChatGPT, that would be great. We will actually put it on in
I
the
would.
group.
I have like a lot. I have a lot. I will have to like go through my chats because if
Okay.
you see my like chats near like NLS, it's all just at points. I had the voice feature of ChatGPT
Yeah.
enabled also. I don't know if like a lot of I had like access through my
Okay.
internship that I did. So I used to just talk to ChatGPT. Like
Okay.
at some points, I don't want to write an essay, right? Be like, give me an essay topic, and I will give you my train of thought. So
Yeah.
there are like free AI agents that do it. Just having like a banter, talking, and trying to like. There is an AI agent for that now.
Yeah.
You don't need to like
Exactly.
fix a particular person to do it. Who's
Exactly.
like, you don't need free people all the time. You could just do it with
So
an
this
AI
this is
agent.
actually a great thing. Like I'll after this interview, like I'll just drop a text. Like if you find anything, if you come across, you can take few days. You can send a few things that we can share in the group as well. That would be really helpful, even for students.
Yes.
One final thing I want to know. Usually, because you're from tech background, you must have written even JE back in the days. So,
Yes.
if you remember back then, we used to have separate time for filling the OMR, the initial, the names and
Yes.
stuff, and later they used to give the paper.
Yes.
But many people stay in the same mindset even while writing an answer. They think they'll be getting extra time, but in reality, they won't be getting
You
anything.
don't.
So
And that
this, yeah,
becomes a very big game changer.
exactly.
I am telling you, I saw people around me panic for time because they did not calculate, like in their head. And NLSAT is not a paper I feel like where you can afford to have like buffer time. You don't plan buffer time. You
Exactly.
finish on time in this paper.
Exactly.
So you need to plan your paper like removing 5 minutes for
True.
the initial OMR, filling of OMR. And while filling OMR also, I think like a lot of people gave me this advice also. So I marked OMR per passage.
Okay.
Like after a singular passage, I would mark the answers on my question paper.
Okay.
Like not after every question,
Mm-hmm.
but after the entire passage, I would mark that passage as OMR. I think it reduces your risk of like
Okay.
getting it wrong up and
Mm-hmm.
down.
Mm-hmm.
But apart from that, the OMR takes time. It's
It does. It
going to
does.
take time
It
regardless.
does.
So
Because people
yeah.
don't counter it. They usually, even we have CBT mocks, right? Well, in CBT mocks, you just click something on computer. But here you'll have to spend at least 10
Yeah.
seconds to mark that. So it's gonna go away. So
I
that's.
had,
Mhm.
and I think I still do. I have like a bunch of OMR sheets just printed with me. I did all of my mocks OMR marked
Okay, perfect.
because
That
I
was my
knew the
next question. In fact, that's what I was about to ask. So you did practice on OMR.
I did all of my 15 mocks that I did on
Okay.
OMR
Mm-hmm.
because I always gave CBTs, right? And
Okay.
going back to OMR was very daunting
True.
because it was like going back to school and I struggled with like
Mm-hmm.
OMR in school again. So I wanted to be very, very certain about how I mark my OMR.
Perfect, perfect. And last question for NLSAT. So I want to know, when you wrote Part B answers, did you go with the point formats or did you go with the passage format of writing the answer?
Passage.
Passage, right?
I went
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, perfect. So that's about the NLSAT thing. Now we'll jump into NLU Odisha, the main thing that you will
yeah.
be entering to next. So in NLUO, there are three, in NLUO and NAIT, there are three sections, the GK, GS, and this general reasoning. So how did you approach each part of it, like each section of it?
So when it comes to NLU Odisha's exam, I found it to be easier for me considering I was prepping for other 3-year LLB exams as well. So there's syllabus overlap over there.
Mm-hmm.
Comes to CUT or MHCET, right?
True.
So that was first thing. With English, my main strategy for NLU Odisha was just to solve as many mocks as possible,
Okay.
and that is when I found Lawfren's mock as well
No.
towards the
Yeah.
end. So I gave them every day. That was it. I was considering if I should buy new mocks or what should I do before, and then I just found mocks given to me. I was like, this is perfect. So my strategy was just to like solve mocks as much as possible for like the English aspect and the reasoning as well.
Perfect.
When it came to GK, again, it was like studying for the other exams, trying to figure out what will come, what will not come,
Yeah.
and evaluating the mocks.
Perfect, perfect. So that's for this NLU Odisha. So basically, you practice mocks, and because you had overlap with MHCT and CUET, you could solve most of the reasoning questions. And for English questions and
Yes.
GK, you just practiced, and you didn't specially go with any NLU Odisha GK like a compendium as such.
Not specifically, no.
Perfect, perfect. And for NLU Odisha, you mentioned that reasoning you were studying for other exams, so it was helpful in NLU Odisha. So, what for other exams, where were you studying the reasoning and English from?
Yes. So reasoning that I studied for CUET
Okay.
was through mocks and
Mm-hmm.
through there was this book. I think it is
Mm-hmm.
the Shaw publication. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I will
Mm-hmm.
check that and I will
Mm-hmm.
send it to you. But it had covered most of the topics that were there
Mm-hmm.
for like logical reasoning, and then just solving mocks covers most types of
Mm-hmm.
questions that can come. Because what are the types of questions that come? There is the
Exactly.
line question, the
Mm-hmm.
circular table question. So once you get used to like the types and patterns of questions,
Mm-hmm.
it comes very easily to you. For me, the logical reasoning was pretty much revision only because they
Mm-hmm.
make you do a lot of aptitude for placements in like tech.
Okay.
So we have that as part of our curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just like revising stuff for me mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So the reasoning was easier.
Mm-hmm.
When it came to English, I took like a couple of days
Okay.
to go through all like I didn't want to mess up in English specifically because I knew I was a little bit too overconfident when it came
Mm-hmm.
to English. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to mess up on like the basic grammatical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I took a couple of days. I went through basic grammar topics
Okay.
because I don't want to miss anything, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
covered all those topics, and then I was just giving marks and nothing else.
Perfect. That's really nice. So that's about it for NLU Odisha and NLSAT. So what other exams have you written apart from these two exams?
I have written CUET PG, the general paper, and I have written MHCET as well.
So
The
you
three
earlier
that
you
I
told me that MHCT you're expecting around 100 plus, 105 plus, right? If I'm not wrong.
Yes,
Yeah.
I am expecting 106 according to the answer key.
Mhm.
And in my CUET, I scored a 218.
That's it, Sujat. We got insight to into your preparation, like how you went about it. So I would be looking forward to have you on campus in NLU Odisha in 1 or 2 months. So it would be great to meet you there, and have a nice time. Have a great time till then. And you can call me or text
Thank
me
you
for
so much.
any doubts that you have regarding admission process and stuff, and I'll be there to help you
Yeah.
out. See, and also for the people who are watching it, for the viewers, kindly subscribe and like and share and comment on the YouTube video. And yeah, see you.